Hello, in this video we are going to be looking at the first of our physicalist theories of mind, that is type identity theory. And I'll begin with a key point summary. So type identity theory is a physicalist theory of mind. In other words, it believes that the mind and the brain are both physical things. Mental states are identical with brain states. But it is important to note that the brain is not identical with the mind. Alright, so mental states can be reduced to physical states. And your key scholar for this theory is J.C.C. Smart. Alright. So let's begin with some preliminaries. Given the interaction problem that plagues substance dualism, many philosophers began to deny the existence of a non-physical mind. Instead, they came to believe that a better way to understand the mental would be to adopt some form of mind-brain identity theory. So according to such a theory, it is possible to make a straightforward identification of one kind of phenomena with another kind. Thus, mental events are nothing but brain events. They are both physical and inner. And in the earliest versions of type identity theory, each kind of mental event, such as an experience of red or a feeling of pain, is treated as being identical with a specific kind of brain state, such as a C fibre firing, in the same way as lightning and electrical discharges are identical. So type identity is therefore a physicalist theory, meaning that it is a theory which claims that mental states can be explained purely in terms of physical states. In this way, certain types of mental events are to be identified with certain types of brain events on a one-to-one basis. However, it is important to note that type identity theory does not claim that the mind and the brain are identical. It is clear that many brain states are not mental states. For example, one's brain is constantly active, that is, in certain states, but one does not necessarily have a mental state as a result. A mental state is a state that corresponds with thinking and feeling. Secondly, type identity theory is about states of mind, for example, pain, anger, belief, fright, and so on. In essence, type identity theory is a version of physicalism which asserts that mental states of a specific type are physical brain states of a specific type. For example, this theory suggests that a thought about astronomy is a specific state of the brain. In other words, a mental state and a brain state are exactly the same thing. To be more specific, one has a particular thought about an aspect of astronomy, such as the Andromeda galaxy. A type identity theorist would allege that this thought purely represents a specific brain state. The same can be said of when we are angry or in pain, and so on. So now let's look at type token identity theory. And in order to properly understand this view, it is important to understand the distinction between types and tokens of types. Compare a type of car, say a Jaguar, with a particular type of mental state, say a type of thought such as London is on fire. Initially, it may be difficult to see that London is on fire is a type of thought in contrast to the way we are familiar to thinking of Jaguars as types of car. But if we consider that we could have the same type of thought, London is on fire, on many different occasions, it becomes easier. On each occasion we had such a thought, we say it was a token of the general type, just as each particular Jaguar that speeds past us on the motorway is also a token of that particular type or model of car. Notice too that thoughts fall under the more general type, mental state, while Jaguars fall under the more general type, car. For another example, consider the word ambiguity. If we count the letters in this word by types, we discover that there are 8 types of letter used. However, if we count by token letters, we find that there are 9 such letters. So what objections are there to type identity theory? Well, we can all say, as does the substance dualist, that we know our own thought processes. I know what I'm thinking better than any of my friends or family. Yet you almost certainly know less about your brain states, not least because even the best neurosurgeons admit to having limited knowledge of the brain and its processes. If brain states and thoughts are identical, then I should know just as much about the former as I do the latter. Secondly, if a brain state is identical with a mental state, the thought must be in the same location as the brain state. However, thoughts do not appear to have exact settings in this sense. If the thought is not in the same place as the brain state, then it is not identical with the brain state, thus showing type identity theory to be false. Type identity theory also fails to deal with the problems of consciousness or qualia, that is, the personal qualities of our own experiences. We then get on to some more serious objections. The neuroplasticity objection. So if one part of the brain is injured, for example, a different part sometimes takes over and discharges the same function. Thus, a particular mental state, such as anger, need not be tied to a particular brain state, because a brain can substitute one state for another to produce the same mental state. A similar objection is the multiple realizability objection. This objection centers on the idea that pain is a mental state which occurs in many creatures. However, most have brains that differ significantly from the human brain. Thus, the mental state of pain in an octopus will not be identical with a human brain state. We know, for example, that octopi or octopodes have their brain in all of their limbs, not just one part of their anatomy, as human beings do. So both these objections show that mental states need not be identical with brain states, thus rendering type identity theory false. So, I will leave it there for type identity theory. There are some further objections, but it would be good if you looked these up for yourself. In our next video, we'll be looking at functionalism.